Ray, June is wedding month.
It is nice to drive by churches and wedding halls and see bridal parties again.
Yes, it is. And my wife and I just celebrated our 20-year wedding anniversary.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, obviously we got married in June too. And it's amazing, the things we do for love.
Many songs have been written about just that.
Right.
Is a wedding the reason we're taking a stroll down Main Street in Hampton, Connecticut?
Well, sort of, but more because of a wedding that didn't happen. Ray, we've come to Windham County to search for the legend of the Darnman. Hello, I'm Jeff Belanger.
And I'm Ray Auger. Welcome to episode 252 of the New England Legends podcast. Thanks for joining us on our mission to chronicle every legend in New England one story at a time.
And we're so glad you're with us. We're a community of legend seekers who love exploring and sharing these strange tales of eccentrics and ghosts and monsters, aliens, odd history, roadside oddities, you name it. Did you know most of our story leads come from you? It's true. This one did. Thank you to Lauren Middleton for the lead on this one. Lauren developed our free smartphone app, and she helps us out in so many ways.
You can get more involved in our community by contacting us through our website, joining our super secret Facebook group, or by calling or texting our legend line anytime at 617-444-9683. Also, don't miss After the Legend, the second half of this episode where Jeff and I take a deeper dive into this week's story, and sometimes we veer a bit off course.
Just a little bit. Hey, so before we go looking for this Darnman, we want to take just a minute to tell you about our sponsor, Nilla Tea.
That you got to try 2 new flavored teas from Nilla Tea. When it's summer, I like drinks fruity.
Yeah, you do.
That includes my teas. Nilla Tea just introduced their brand new Peach Nilla Tea, fresh out of founder Rod Jackson's Secret Tea Laboratory.
Peach Nilla is the perfect blend of peach and vanilla flavor along with other all-natural ingredients. It's naturally sweet, though no one's going to fault you if you want to add a little honey or sugar to it. And it's naturally caffeine-free, so you can enjoy it right before bed if you like. Peach Nilla is great hot or cold.
The second brand new flavor just released by Nilla Tea is Blueberry Cinnamon. 2 great flavors that go perfectly together. Blueberries are great for you with their antioxidants, plus they're naturally sweet, and the cinnamon gives it just enough spice and kick. It's a great breakfast tea, a perfect way to start your summer day.
Nilla Tea has an incredible lineup of flavored teas. Teas like chocolate chai, root berry tea, strawberry moon, and lemon sun, just to name a few of them. All of them are made and mixed by hand, and you might try your hand at mixing some of them together to create your own unique flavors. Have at it.
Let Nilla Tea help support your healthy lifestyle. Check out the Nilla Tea website to see all their great products, and you get 20% off your order when you use the promo code LEGENDS20 at checkout. Visit NuwatiHerbals.com. That's NUWATI herbals with an S.com.
Okay, so Ray, do you remember the 1986 classic movie Crocodile Dundee?
Of course I do. Who could forget Paul Hogan making his way through the Australian outback, then coming to New York City?
That's the one. So in the movie, he talked about going walkabout.
Oh, right. That's when you basically walk off into the outback and live off the land for a while.
Yeah, though I guess it wouldn't have to be just the outback. I mean, I suppose you could try that anywhere. I guess in this country we'd call those folks hobos. Hop on a freight train, hitch a ride somewhere, live off the land, live off handouts, make camps. I wonder, though, do you think you could live like that?
No.
No?
Not a chance. But I get the appeal of having no responsibilities other than to survive another day. I mean, life would be very simple.
It would be. Now, to be clear, we're not talking about our homeless population. We're talking about a small group of people over the centuries who were homeless completely by choice. People who viewed true freedom as having no roots, no fixed address. Some of these folks became folk heroes.
We've explored a few of these eccentric vagabonds on this podcast. There's Kling Klang,
right? Old
Leatherman, and the Barefoot Farmer of Pawtuckaway, just to name a few.
And now we can add the Darnman to the list.
The Darnman. I know we don't swear on here, but darn?
Yeah, no, I know. In this case, darn refers to fixing or mending clothing, like when you darn a sock. But with the Darnman, it was a fancy coat. In fact, some people called him Old Darn Coat.
Now, I'm sure he had a real name, right?
I'm sure he did, but no one seems to know it. He'd give different names to different people. But his tale was tragic, which may explain why so many people in this part of New England were so willing to help him. To learn more, let's head back to 1859 and meet the Darnman.
It's April of 1859 here in Hampton, Connecticut. It's a beautiful spring day, a good day for a stroll. We're standing just outside the home and farm of the Ayre family.
The Ayre farm is a busy place. There's a swamp to be drained, animals to be fed, irrigation ditches to be dug, and every other endless chore associated with a farm. Immigrants, fresh off the boat, and all kinds of other people make their way through this region, knocking on doors of farms and homes looking for work, whether it's seasonal work or just a day or two. People are willing to take what they can get.
This guy walking up the road looks different than the others.
And I think this must be our guy. He's got on a tall stovepipe hat. He's walking with a certain gentlemanly swagger, but his coat, look at that coat. I mean, it's a sight to behold.
His coat looks like a formal jacket coat with tails and everything, but it's stitched countless times with threads and yarns of every possible color. Good morning, sir.
He just tipped his hat to us. Good morning. And there he goes, heading for the Ayre home. Hey, let's follow him.
Inside the Ayre house, it's clear the Darnman has been here before. The Darnman takes off his hat to reveal a snuff box with fancy gold inlays, his glasses, and a kerchief. He explains the snuff box was a gift from his bride-to-be.
When Mrs. Ayre offers to patch a small tear in his fancy coat, the Darnman insists that he'll do it himself, although he'd be grateful for the use of some thread or string. He explains that this was the coat he was to be married in, and he intends to leave it on until he's reunited with his bride and they're finally married. When the Darnman comments on a picture of a woman in a new style of dress in Mrs. Ayre's magazine, she asks him if the woman in the magazine reminds him of the young woman he was expected to marry.
If I told you, you would know my thoughts, my memories of the past.
And when he speaks, there's a hint of an English accent, but it's weird. It's not every word.
I noticed that. Yeah, it's almost like the accent isn't real. I mean, it's something he's putting on, maybe?
Maybe, but I'm not sure. The Darnman clearly loves to talk. He tells stories of noblemen he's known over in England and Scotland. He's obviously intelligent and well-read. He's up on the news of the day, but he never gives a straight answer when asked a question, especially if that question is about him.
The Ayre family are well-read as well. I mean, there's all kinds of recent periodicals lying all around the reading room. There's the Hartford Weekly Times, the New York Ledger, the Boston True Flag, Harper's Illustrated Weekly, just to name a few. The Darnman is practically salivating looking at all those publications. He asks if he can stay a day or two and do some work in exchange for the opportunity to catch up on his reading. Mr. Ayre agrees.
When Mr. Ayre presses the Darnman for his name, the Darnman replies that his name is George Johnson from Rhode Island.
Which is all well and good, but one of the farmhands told me he's run into the Darnman before. He said that time the Darnman introduced himself as George Thompson from Taunton, Massachusetts. It seems like each time he tells a story about himself, it's different.
The Darnman also avoids discussing anything in his life that occurred before his wedding that never happened. If you bring up his childhood or where he's from, he changes the subject. You often don't get the same answer twice.
You'd think the Ayre family and others wouldn't trust someone like that.
I get that, but there's something about him. Maybe it's his soft eyes. Plus, at this point, the Darnman is kind of a celebrity. After 2 days at the Ayre house, he leaves and moves on to the next house down the road, always traveling the same route around Windham County in northeastern Connecticut. About once a month, he's back at the Ayre farm for a night or two, and then back on the road until January. Where he spends the winter months between January and April is a mystery. But when spring breaks, he's back again in that old darn coat.
At each house, he tells different stories, gives different names, but each time someone offers to mend his coat for him, he tells the same story about how he was to be married in that coat, and he'll tend to it until his bride returns, which should be any day now. Year after year, it's any day now.
As to exactly what happened to that bride became a subject of many different tales. Some say Darnman was a teacher engaged to the daughter of a New London ship captain. They say she sailed to New York to buy her wedding dress, and the ship sank in a storm. The bridegroom was never the same, and just wandered off wearing his wedding coat.
Other versions are more simple. The Darnman was left at the altar. His bride never showed, and he never saw her again. The truth is we don't know. Still, we have a little insight. On one of his return visits to the Ayre farm, the Darnman pulls Ayre's son aside to talk to him.
Boy, as you grow up, beware of the girls. Don't spend your money on them. Don't pay out for a nice wedding suit, especially a coat, for you may be left as I was, To wander about with my wedding coat I vow to wear until I learned what became of the one whom I adored, who I am not willing to say went back on me. I am charitable enough to think she was spirited away, or lost her mind, and perhaps was killed.
It's 1860 when the Eyre family moves south to the town of Scotland, Connecticut. They don't see much of the Darnman after that, but one time they run into him traveling on the road. His hair is long, gray, and braided down his back. The Eyres ask him why he doesn't adjust his route to come visit them in their new home in Scotland.
No, I have my mind made up to keep on going over the same route, in the same towns, and I expect to die sometime in some of the places I've been for years.
The Eyres asked the Darnman if he maybe wanted to leave some information, confidentially, of course, for contacting his relatives, or if he had any kind of final wishes for when his end comes. But true to form, the Darnman is vague.
If you knew what I know about myself, you would know what I know.
It's 1863 when a farmer driving his wagon along Snake Meadow Hill Road in Sterling, Connecticut, discovers old Darnman lying near the road. The farmer scoops up the vagabond and places him in his wagon so he can bring him to get help. But the old man dies in the wagon. He's buried in the Oneko section of Sterling. They say he's buried in his famous coat. And that brings us back to today.
He's gone, but not forgotten. Like we said earlier, he was a celebrity in Windham County.
Yeah, he was.
Most of what we know about the Darnman, or Old Darncoat as he was also called, comes from the 1920 book, A Modern History of Windham County. Dr. A.D. Eyre wrote the section on the Old Darncoat from his childhood memories.
There have also been various newspaper articles published over the years where the Darnman gets a mention or two. He was a folk hero in these parts, yet so much about him is still a mystery. What we know has been cobbled together from old journals, articles, and things like that. And you never know when your family might have some old letter or journal with some new piece of information about the old Darnman. If you find something, please do let us know. We love learning new things.
I still feel like someone like this couldn't exist today.
Sure.
I mean, cities have certain colorful homeless characters that locals get to know, but you can't knock on a stranger's door and ask for a place to sleep anymore. It's too scary.
No, I get it. Some of these legends connect us to a different time. I think it's fitting to close this one with a section of a poem about the Darnman that was written by Mrs. C.H.N. Thomas of Danielson, Connecticut, sometime after the Darnman's death. The beggar lay dead by the roadside, a pitiful sight to see, but then he was only a beggar, and nothing to you and me. He was weary and worn with travel, his feet could not further go, in chase of the beautiful phantom that beckoned him from long ago. With eyes like the eyes of the maiden, full of gentleness and truth, who died on the morn of her bridal, the love of his long-lost youth, and left him so crazed and heartbroken to wander alone through life, its joys and its pleasures unheeding, unheeded its turmoil and strife.
And that brings us to After the Legend, where we take a deeper dive into this week's story. And sometimes we veer off course.
Sometimes.
After the Legend is sponsored by our friends at Seaside Shadows.
Seaside Shadows offers a blend of history and mystery on their guided tours of southern New England. And, big announcement, Friday, June 24th is opening day of their Concord, Massachusetts tours. It's called Downtown Concord Ghost and True Crime, and these tours operate 6 days per week.
Now, Concord, Massachusetts is the site of the shot heard round the world, the birthplace of the American Revolution, the home of American transcendentalism, and some of the best-known American literary icons are buried right here in Concord.
The Seaside Shadows Tour will take you through downtown Concord, through the burial grounds, haunted locations, and sites of sinister and dark activity. You'll hear tales of missing heads, famous authors fishing for human corpses, curious funeral practices, cold-blooded murder, and missing travelers along the streets of Concord.
Seaside Shadows Concord Tour meets just behind the Visitor Center on the far end of the parking lot at the bridge leading to Chamberlain Park. Parking is available in the lot or public street parking in Concord.
Head over to seasideshadows.com to learn all about their upcoming events and tours in Mystic, Connecticut, Westerly, Rhode Island, and now Concord, Massachusetts. Plus, Seaside Shadows can host murder mystery dinners, pub crawls, and more. There's always something new going on at seasideshadows.com. You can book your experience right online at seasideshadows.com. Start your tour of local legends, lore, and true history. Okay, so, walking vagabonds.
Yeah, I said I could never do this. I probably couldn't. I'd like to think I could.
Yeah.
But then I'd get comfortable wherever I am. I'd be like, ugh, a 20-mile journey in front of me. I don't think so.
Yeah, no, it's really, and again, I can't stress enough, we're not talking about the homeless population. We're talking about people that are just like, no, I want to just
It's a choice.
live off the land.
For
Deadheads.
all we know, this guy
Right.
is a millionaire. He
Right.
just chooses to be a vagabond.
That's right. I mean, and I get it. It's total freedom.
You were going to say deadheads.
I said deadheads.
Just like that.
So when I was in college,
You did this?
I saw but I did see a few Grateful Dead concerts in my time, and there were people that just like went and followed the Dead. And I remember talking to a guy, and he's just like, "Yeah, I traded some of my poetry for a grilled cheese sandwich."
Oh, my God.
And I'm like, "That's amazing, right? Like, where else?"
Well, what do
could
they
you do
call
that?
those things now? FTPs? Not FTPs.
What are you talking
You know,
about?
the pictures that are so unique and they're valuable.
Oh, yes.
That's almost the same.
NFTs.
NFTs. That's almost the same thing. His poetry was an NFT.
His poetry was
he
an
traded
NFT.
it for something. That's
And I'm not casting aspersions on this gentleman, but he seemed to imbibe in whatever was offered to him at these kinds of events.
That
And
happens at those events.
It might be an NFT because I don't think he remembers his poem. I'm just, if I had to go on a limb, I'd say he wrote it down, and there it was. There's the old Darnman was in a bunch of newspaper articles, and I just want to point out something that was interesting. January 16th, 1908, the Hartford Courant had an article about a second old Darnman. This article says in part, William Devine, an old man, and second old Darnman, who was known as Nick Carter, and had roamed Windham County, same county, for the last 15 years, was taken to Town Farm and last fall and died there last Sunday, avoided conversation and so on. And anyway, his appearance gave him the same as the old Darnman who for so many years roamed around eastern Connecticut. So there was a copycat old Darnman. And also one other article from the Norwich Bulletin in April of 1922, probably responding to the book that came out in 1920, said that the author's aunt told her stories of the Darnman, who said he was a bright and promising youth who engaged to be married, but his bride died on their wedding day and he was off ever since. So, and she mentions, too, that her grandparents thought it was a crime to turn anyone away from their front door who came asking for food or shelter, which is such different times.
Oh,
isn't
yeah.
it? Imagine someone
even
knocking
when
on your door.
neighbor comes over.
Yeah, you're like,
you
oh,
avoid it.
You're not going to be here long, are you? Like, you just need like to use the phone or something.
I'm
Or...
constantly trying not to make eye contact with neighbors.
and they live right down the street.
Yeah.
No, I get it. It's such a different world. And you know, once in a while I'll see like a documentary. There are still people that will hop a freight train.
Sure.
Illegal, by the way. And they'll get from one place to another, and then they'll make a camp. Hobos, you know where the term comes from?
Where?
Homeward bound.
I did not know
Homeward
that.
bound. And so the hobos, this was, like Great Depression era and stuff, they would leave marks on fences and things like that. And the marks were to tell other hobos, like, hey, this house is pretty friendly.
Oh, wow.
Or there could be warning marks, like, don't. They're
not
armed.
friendly.
Yeah.
You will be murdered.
Yeah, they'll eat you. They'll cook you and eat you. And so, but yeah, I love the idea of just like, hey, I'm just going to like wander around and live off the fat of the land. And that sounds great, having no responsibility. I get it. It's like a dad and someone with a lot of responsibility. But I couldn't do it.
We have that thought. The thought
Yeah.
crosses our mind from time to time.
Yeah.
Kids get a little too unruly, and it's like, what if I just left?
Just
Just got on the road, sold every little thing in Mantown,
yeah.
all my collectibles.
And then what do you do?
And then I guess you put the money in your sock. You pretend like you don't have any money, but
Right.
if you had to stay at a hotel, you would stay at a hotel.
Right, and you'd burn through it. The funny thing about money is that when you have none coming in and only going out, it doesn't matter how slow it's going out. You'll bleed it all out eventually.
Absolutely.
And it's scary.
You know what's funny about these stories we tell, too? These people seem to want attention.
Yeah.
Cling clang.
Yeah,
He literally made noise as he was walking.
yeah, for sure.
So that's an interesting point. There's many, I'm sure, that hid in the woods and didn't want to be seen at all. Like the hermit that we talked about.
The hermit of Maine.
Nobody
talked about
wanted
him.
to he didn't want to
He
deal
did
with
not want to
anybody.
be found.
And then he became famous.
So what I like about Old Darn Coat is that his fame probably got him a lot of overnight stays. They're like, oh my gosh, that's Old
That's a
Darn-
celebrity.
That's
Yeah.
a celebrity.
And then
Like,
they could
that's-
tell their friends.
He stayed at our house.
Yeah.
And I saw his coat. One quick thing that I was thinking of this. Imagine a coat with just threads of every color.
Yeah.
It's a biblical reference. Makes us look religious, I guess. Genesis chapter 36.
Oh, yes, I know this well.
Right. Just go ahead and recite it. Not memorized, by the way. I had to look it up. But Joseph. And the many coat of many colors.
colors.
Right. That story, which was made into Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat,
Yeah.
right? So the thing about Joseph is that he had 12 brothers, and Joseph was not the firstborn son, but he was given this coat, and he was the birthright. And so his other brothers were jealous. Eventually, they revealed his tattered coat as proof that he was dead and that the birthright should pass on to someone else. And so it was like this jealousy thing of he shouldn't have this coat, he shouldn't have the birthright. And I wonder, like, was it almost like biblical? This guy's wandering the land, not Canaan but Connecticut, and he's got the Technicolor coat on, and he's a celebrity. And there's like a biblical reference. I don't know where I'm going with that. Maybe it didn't make any sense.
You were digging for something.
I was.
You just hit a rock. That's all.
I hit a rock, so we'll just move past it. But yeah, no, I just think about how it was such a different time of that. There was a time where people showed up, they needed help. And so as a guy who's traveled internationally a bit, I know when you're in another country and you don't speak the language and you ask someone for help and they go out of their way because they know like you could be them.
Right.
And so when I'm here and I'm in U.S. airports and someone doesn't speak English and they're like, I need to get to the taxis. What do I do? Or, and they're trying to like sound it out or whatever. I'm so inclined to help because like that's me, right? That could be me.
Because you could be in that situation. Absolutely.
And I think that, some of the stories we tell are about a time when neighbors had to look out for not just other neighbors, but strangers.
Yeah.
Snowstorms and someone's stuck in it. Like you have to take them in or you literally practically murdered that person.
Yeah.
Right? Like blizzard. Yes. Come into my home. You're staying for the night, maybe a couple days till this thing blows by. And that was just a different time. I don't think we think like that anymore.
You're actually going to have to deal with a language barrier. You're going to England.
Yes. Righto. Cheerio. Bit. What does even that mean? I don't know. I'll be going to England very soon for the Sage
cool.
Paracon.
Wow.
You guys will be there in July. So if you're over there, if you want to join us, there's still tickets available.
You talking to me or?
Yes. Yeah.
I'd have to buy my tickets.
Yep. Pretty much.
I'm not there yet.
Yeah. You're getting there. Hang in there.
Hey, please be sure to subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts because it's free. And be sure to share these episodes with a friend or two. It's how our community continues to grow.
I would like to thank our sponsors, Nilla Herbals and Seaside Shadows. I'd like to thank our Patreon patrons. Head over to patreon.com/New England Legends to get early access to new episodes, plus bonus episodes and content that no one else gets to hear. Thank you so much to Dustin Perry for lending his voice acting talents this week. And our theme music is by John Judd.
Until next time, remember,
the bizarre is closer than you think.